here. Welcome and welcome back. Now, somebody, when I did that video about the KTM 790-890 camshaft debacle, and folks saying that camshafts in that engine are made variously of cheese or chocolate or whatever, and all of that, and all sorts of urban myths kicking about, and all sorts of homespun theories, and an awful lot of speculation, and not an awful lot of science or good engineering. So, but a couple of people pointed me in the direction of a channel that I have watched before called Dirty Garage Guy, a fella called Matt Hudson. In fact, in the dim and distant, I think I've referred to him on the channel after a couple of his episodes where he'd mercilessly, and I think a little bit cruelly, taken the rip out of TMF and to a lesser extent Stuart Fillingham, which I don't mind taking the mickey out of other channels. It's all good friendly banter, and I'm quite happy for folk to do the same about mine. Don't mind that at all, as long as it's in good humour. But it were a little bit cruel, I think, what he did. But anyway, that's another story. But he is, as far as I understand it, a qualified engineer of some repute. I don't know if he's ex-military or whatever, but obviously knows his onions when it comes to engines and engineering. So a couple of you out there pointed me in the direction of one of his latest videos, and I went and watched it, and it was about the KTM camshafts, and it was very interesting to see that with what appeared to me, with my limited engineering knowledge, but with having a sort of A-level science background at school, what appeared to me to be quite a logical analysis of the most likely cause of the problem, and the most likely explanation of the fact that it doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to some people. And basically what it said was it's an oil supply issue. So apparently it's nothing to do with the hardening or the scale of the hardening on the camshaft. It's nothing to do with any shortcomings there. It's to do with the oil supply. Now, it's interesting that in their early response to the issue with the 2018, 19, 2020 problems with the 790 engine in the Duke and the Adventure, that KTM themselves came to the conclusion that it was at least partially attributable to an oil supply issue, and partly to the size of the cam fingers, and they said that they'd addressed both of those issues. Now, as I understand it, the way in which KTM explained that they'd addressed the oil supply issue was by fitting an additional oil strainer. I'm sure that's how I'd read it. And Matt Hudson, Dirty Garage Guy, sort of concludes that as a response to an oil supply issue, that sticking in another oil strainer is not going to do any good whatsoever. Might even make it worse. I can sort of see the logic there. But that was their stated response to what they perceived to be part of the problem, and the other was to make the cam fingers a bit bigger, apparently. But anyway, so yeah, Dirty Garage Guy. So basically what he said, go and have a look at the video. It's an oil supply issue, and as I understand it, the reason is the channels through which the oil flows within the engine casing to reach the moving parts. Where 2 or 3 of those channels intersect, I think it's called cross drilling, where they intersect, unless they are perfectly aligned, and some of them aren't, that by the time you come to screw in the jet nozzles to constrict the diameter and thereby produce a squirting effect through increased pressure, when you screw those in, they partially block the intersection between one oil channel and the next, which would of course cause a bit of oil starvation. And I could sort of see the logic to it, because on the engine he had, which had obviously come out of the KTM that had that problem, you could see that a couple of the lobes on the cam were absolutely destroyed, but a couple of others didn't look so bad, which sort of does point to, doesn't it, a problem in one part of the engine and not in the other in terms of oil supply. And thereby sort of also reinforces the fact that it's not following any hard and fast rules about where it might occur in the engine. It's just occurring where that misalignment takes place. And I think as he was saying there, that also explains why it happens to some people and not to others. The conclusion that he did draw, which appears to be the right conclusion, was that it is a manufacturing fault by KTM. What we don't know at this point, and it'd be interesting to find out, is whether or not the particular issue that Dirty Garage Guy identified has been addressed by KTM in the later engines, i.e. The engines made from 2020 onwards, 790 and 890, and which is of some interest to me, of course, because I have one of the later 790 engines in my CF Moto 800 MT. CF Moto make the engines for KTM now for the 790. Now I would like to think that they have, and as far as I'm aware, please correct me if I'm wrong if you know differently, as far as I'm aware, nobody's pulled apart one of the later engines, say a 2022, 2023 engine. Nobody's pulled apart one of those and identified the issue that Dirty Garage Guy identified in that episode. But any road up made quite a bit of sense to me. Not an issue to do with the quality of the camshaft, but an issue to do with oil supply. Aye, so thank you, yeah, for the 2 or 3 people out there that pointed that out. Thank you. Interesting. Anyway, onwards to Massam.